I came to Gaza with a camera in my hand and 1,000 assumptions in my mind. I thought I was here to document broken walls, shattered buildings, and fractured lives. I thought I was here to tell a story of despair. What I didn't know was that Gaza wasn't broken. The buildings may be cracked, but the people, especially the families rooted in faith, carry a strength I had never seen before. And what truly tore down the walls inside me wasn't the sound of bombs or the sight of rubble. It was a Muslim family who lived in the heart of Gaza, who welcomed me like a brother, and whose way of life awakened something I didn't know was sleeping in my soul. The first time I stepped into their home, it was after a long, dusty walk through streets littered with remnants of war. There were no street signs, no guideposts, just the echoes of children laughing between the ruins. Amid all the chaos, their home stood like a candle in a hurricane, not because it was untouched by the conflict. On the contrary, the roof had holes from shrapnel, and parts of the walls were barely holding, but because of what was inside warmth, peace, love, and unshakable faith. I was hesitant. My shoes were covered in dirt, my camera heavy around my neck, and my heart even heavier with judgment. But before I could knock, the door opened, and a man with deep eyes and a soft smile greeted me. "Welcome," he said in English, motioning me in. "This is your home too." That was the first time I heard the phrase, "This is your home too," in Gaza. But it wouldn't be the last. The father's name was Yusuf, his wife, Layla, and their 3 children, Amina, Zaid, and little Mariam, aged 10, 7, and 3. Their home, though small, radiated dignity. I expected sadness. I found serenity. I expected anger. I found grace. They offered me food, despite having so little themselves. I remember Layla placing a plate in front of me, the aroma of warm bread and lentils filling the air. "We eat together," she said gently. I noticed she didn't serve herself until everyone else had eaten. That quiet act, so small, began to shake something in me. I'd seen generosity before, but never like this. Not from people who had every right to withhold it. Each night, after dinner, Yusuf would gather his family for prayer, and they invited me to sit nearby, not to participate, only to observe. I watched them stand shoulder to shoulder, eyes lowered in humility, whispering words I didn't understand yet could feel deep in my chest. It wasn't just ritual. It was communion, not just with God, but with each other. One night after the children had fallen asleep, Yusuf and I sat outside under the broken sky. Drones hovered above. You could hear them sometimes like a dark hum trying to mute the sound of hope. And yet, Yusuf said something I'll never forget. They can watch us from above, but they can't see what's inside us. They cannot balm our faith. I asked him how he could stay so calm in the face of destruction. He smiled, eyes fixed on the stars. "We trust in Allah. He gives, He takes, but He never leaves." That sentence hit me like a tidal wave. I had spent most of my life believing that hardship meant abandonment, that if life wasn't easy, then surely God wasn't near. But here, in the heart of a land choked by blockade and bombardment, I found people who believed more deeply, more passionately than anyone I'd ever met. Their faith wasn't theoretical. It wasn't just something they recited from books. It was lived. Every prayer, every fast, every act of patience and kindness was rooted in something larger than survival. It was rooted in submission. Not defeat, but submission to the one who sees all, knows all, and never wastes a single tear. I began to notice the way Yusuf treated his wife, not as an afterthought, but as a partner in strength. Layla was the heartbeat of that home. She taught the children, cooked every meal, comforted neighbors, and still had time to smile. Her face was a map of grace, each wrinkle a mark of resilience. One day I asked her how she managed to smile through it all. She replied with such softness, "Because Allah sees me, and when He sees my patience, He rewards it in ways no one else can." That moment shattered me. I had never considered patience as power. I had always viewed waiting as weakness, but in Layla, I saw a warrior, not one who fought with weapons, but with unwavering peace. The children, too, taught me more than any textbook ever could. Amina once showed me a journal she kept, filled with drawings of trees, birds, and a mosque she dreamed of visiting one day in Jerusalem. "Even if I can't go now," she said, "I draw it. So my heart still travels." Her innocence wasn't naive. It was revolutionary. To imagine freedom when everything around you says otherwise, that is the soul of Gaza. One afternoon, while walking with Zaid, we heard a distant explosion. I instinctively ducked, heart racing. Zaid, just 7 years old, held my hand tighter and said, "Don't worry. We are with Allah." That child had seen more fear than most people do in a lifetime, yet his first instinct wasn't panic. It was remembrance of God. I realized then that fear had conditioned me. Faith had conditioned them. But it was little Mariam who broke me. One evening, while I was filming the family from a distance, she waddled toward me, holding out a toy. A tiny stuffed camel, worn out and stitched at the seams, she placed in my hand and said in Arabic, "You can keep it." I asked Layla to translate, thinking I misunderstood. She did. Mariam said, "It's yours now." "You looked sad. She wants you to smile?" That night I wept. I didn't cry because of war or suffering. Cried because a 3-year-old child, living under siege, gave away her only toy to a stranger because she sensed sadness. That kind of love, that kind of empathy, isn't taught. It's lived. It's breathed. It's passed from one faithful heart to another. The days turned into weeks. Every day with this family chipped away at my cynicism. Every prayer they whispered reminded me of a truth I had long burying. That faith isn't about escaping suffering. It's about transforming it. It's about finding God not just in comfort, but in chaos. Not just in churches or mosques, but in cracked floors, tearful nights, and bread shared with strangers. I asked Yusuf one evening what Islam meant to him. He looked at me and said, "Islam is peace, not the kind the world negotiates with contracts, but the kind that grows in the chest of a person who surrenders to the will of God. That's the peace you feel in our home. Not because the world is safe, but because our hearts are." His words haunted me. In the best way, I began to read more about Islam. I listened to the Qur'an being recited in the early hours of the morning, its melodies rising above the rubble like birdsong. Even though I didn't understand the words at first, the feeling was undeniable. There was a power in them, a sweetness that gripped my heart before it touched my mind. One day, as I sat with Amina while she read the Qur'an aloud, I asked her what it meant to her. She smiled and said, "It's my light when the world is dark." That one sentence undid me. My whole life, I searched for light in success, in money, in status. And here was a 10-year-old girl finding it in sacred verses that asked for nothing but sincerity. I knew I couldn't leave Gaza the same. I came for a story. I left with a new heart, one shaped not by sympathy, but by awakening. This family didn't just change my perspective. They changed my life. Their faith, their love, their grace. These things rewired my soul. I no longer saw Muslims as statistics or strangers. I saw them as mirrors, reflecting what I lacked and what I needed to become. When I finally said goodbye, there were no dramatic words, just embraces. Zaid handed me a Qur'an wrapped in cloth. Yusuf said, "Keep this close, even if your journey is far." Layla whispered, "God guided you here. He will guide you always." And Mariam, with her innocent smile, waved and said in Arabic, "Don't forget us." I never will. Back home, nothing looked the same. My apartment felt too big, my schedule too rushed, my heart too quiet, so I began to read the Qur'an Zaid gave me. And I cried, not out of confusion, but because I finally understood. The peace I saw in Gaza wasn't despite Islam. It was because of it. The strength I saw in that family didn't come from comfort. It came from God. Eventually, I embraced Islam, not because someone debated me, Not because I was pressured, but because one Muslim family in Gaza lived it so purely, so beautifully, that my heart had no choice but to follow. Their way of life showed me that truth isn't in loud arguments. It's in quiet consistency, in patience, in prayer, in love that expects nothing in return. I owe everything to that family, not just for their kindness, but for their faithfulness. They taught me that the greatest form of resistance isn't hatred, it's hope, and that the most powerful way to win hearts isn't through force, but through faith. The Muslim family in Gaza changed my heart forever, and if you saw what I saw, felt what I felt, and loved as they loved, your heart would never be the same either. You specified that the script should have no headings and no brackets. This means no sections like conclusion, final thoughts, or even structural dividers. It should read like one continuous, emotional, cinematic narrative. That style keeps the viewer emotionally engaged without breaking the flow.